Welcome back to the Skills Podcast. We're so glad you're here. In episode 1, we explored the concept of conflict and how to better understand and work with what's happening in those moments. Today, in episode 2, we build on that theme and introduce 2 key skills for building what's called net positive cycles. Those skills are accurate expression and validation. What we love about these first 2 episodes is that you'll hear a raw, unfiltered cut of these early conversations that inspired us to build what eventually became the on-point practice. Starting with our next episode, you'll notice a shift in the format for most of our episodes going forward, and that's intentional. After much reflection on how best to share this work, we decided to have Meredith teach DBT skills exactly as she does in her skills training groups. That way, listeners can get a no-cost, in-depth look at DBT skills and the real impact they provide. While we'll continue highlighting how these tools apply specifically to founders, teams, and organizations, the truth is, these skills are for everyone. We'll also now be sharing video versions of the podcast so we can spotlight key frameworks, images, and worksheets. If you'd like to watch the video version of our podcast episodes, check out our YouTube channel at The Skills Podcast, or visit our podcast section of our website at theonpointpractice.com. Without further ado, let's dive back in.
So we talked about the transactional model. So how one person does something and then it influences how we're feeling and how that creates a cycle. So I think it's important just to name that whatever is happening between 2 people, like you're in a kind of like a dance, if you will, of influencing each other. And then the same things happens from like a systems level. So whatever's happening like on a bigger team, what a team is doing or multiple people is doing, maybe influencing you and vice versa. So if conflict arises in one of those domains, the question then becomes kind of what prompted that, what's happening, and what's the role of both parties. And then if we can determine what role we're playing, then that gives us something to do and something to work with. It's something we can even ask for. We can ask for the other person to make some changes or do something different. We can ask clarifying questions. And if we are the one that's responding to something and we are becoming more unable to accurately express ourselves, so we're becoming more like dysregulated, or we have more higher emotions present, we're getting really frustrated, or we're falling into a pattern of acting in a way that we don't want to be acting anymore, that's our cue to tune in, do something different. So my thought was, okay, well, let's talk about what to do differently because we had a nice little foundation last time. So like, what does that look like?
Yeah, and I think just to underline what you just said there, I think what you're suggesting is conflict is not just between 2 people. It sounds like there's an awful lot that's often going on around those 2 people that people may or may not be mindful of.
Correct.
Right? That
always influencing the system.
Got it.
Like influencing us in like any given moment.
Right, exactly. So like if you had this situation play out like between person A and person B at work, right? Everybody's well rested. Everything's fine with the world. The team's not under stress. Like that conflict's probably going to play out a whole lot differently than when everyone's running 1,000 miles an hour, super stressed, has stuff going on at home in addition to whatever else is coming up at work, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Our bandwidth to respond and communicate clearly or effectively gets really limited, gets restricted.
Yeah.
Which is a part of that cycle. Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I'm all about, okay, what can I do about it? Right? I understand it. I have the awareness. Now help me, please, for the love of God, make better decisions.
Yes. So there's 2 kind of points, 2 inroads here. So we think about that first part is we're aiming for more accurate expression. So we named a couple skills there, looking at the feelings wheel, looking at your needs inventory, trying to grow awareness to what your primary emotions are. So like what's at the core. I think the word that I used last time is like ping, when you feel like that ping or a pull from something, what's at the core of it. And then there's more to some accurate expression, so we could start there. And then the other side is validation. So I'm hoping to express myself as best I can, which then allows you to validate me really easily. And then we have this like nice little virtuous cycle that gets set off, and it's just lovely, right?
So lovely when it plays out like that.
I feel like validation is like that word that like everyone thinks they know what it is. Which is great. And it's a skill set, like to really know and understand validation, and then to be able to provide it or to offer it at times where it feels really challenging. That's a skill set we have to build mastery at. So I always tell people like, it's really easy to validate when things are going well. You share something lovely with me. I'm like, oh, gosh, of course you're excited about that. That just makes so much sense. I'm so happy for you. It's like we're just so easy to lean into that.
Yes.
But when you're telling me something that sets off my own response, it's really hard to still hold that for people. So the other kind of path in, and I think a skill set that people can work on in different domains is the validation skill too.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think for anybody who's never heard that term before, because sometimes I think it can sound a little clinical, validating to me, I'm going to check this with you, validating to me is sort of like honoring the fact that many things can be true at the same time, right? Like, I am not a mind reader. I know what my lived experience is. You know what your lived experience is, right? Even if I'm not upset about something, that doesn't mean that you're not upset about something. Like, what is your experience? Like, validating is like acknowledging and showing that you understand, I suppose, what someone else is feeling or has gone through or something like that. Does that feel right to you?
Yes. Yeah. Communicating the understanding. I like that term. It's a good one that lands. And what can be tricky about that, right, is, well, what if I don't understand? Right? Or you say something, I have to validate that, but I don't see it that way. Or actually, I very much so disagree with that. Yep. How do I continue on and do this validation thing, right?
Yep, exactly.
So that's the skill. That's where the skill part comes in. It's like, well, how do we practice that? Yeah.
Like it.
So that's a good reminder. I'm thinking, since we're opening this door, let's just stay in this door, and then we can go back into, or go down this path, and then we can go back to the accurate expression.
Okay.
So communicating understanding or expressing like my understanding, we can think about that as validating. First and foremost, what's really important is what we're saying here is what we want to validate is something that is valid. So what I tell people is like, always look for like what's valid. So another like kind of spot where people can get stuck is, well, the person did something that was really harmful, or it says something that was hurtful, and I don't want to validate that. And so the behavior is often can be invalid, or it can be something that we don't want more of, or it doesn't make sense to act in that way. But what about that person's experience could we try to understand, or given their experiences, what about what's going on for them? What about that is the valid part? So like a typical example I give for this is like a parenting example, but if your kid throws something and like breaks something, we wouldn't go, oh, like Timmy, it totally makes sense that you broke that. Like I get it. Right? Like we don't want to validate that. No, we don't want them breaking stuff. But why did this poor Timmy, he's getting picked on right now, but why did he throw something? Why did he break it? It was probably something that he was responding to. And that thing that he is experiencing, what part of that can we understand? Oh, it makes, wait, were you feeling angry? Were you feeling really frustrated that your friend just took this thing from you? I can see that, right? So behavior is not okay, but what is that person's part of that person's experience that we can pull out that we can say that part is valid? So the behavior is not always what we want to focus on.
Yeah.
But it's like the shiny object is the thing we focus on. It's so easy to get pulled to. That person's such a jerk because they did this thing. Well, it's like, well, one step further. Why do we think that thing occurred? Or why do we, what can we take a stab at it? What can we make take a guess at?
I really like anytime you want to use, I think, a parenting example, I think it's directly applicable to work 99% of the time. So, because I think in some ways, what's really easy to see with kids is a lot harder to see with adults because we think that people should know better, or we think that everybody should be emotionally mature and able to act in the best possible way. But what we forget sometimes, I think, is that everybody's got their own baggage, right? They're carrying it anywhere they go. Wherever you go, that's where you are, right? And so I think being able to see through the eyes of interacting with a child who's expressing anger, perhaps in an ineffective way, I think it's a great lens to look at some of this through, because I think it'll help us like extrapolate too. Oh yeah, that's like when my coworker like just cut me off in the middle of the meeting and kind of like yelled at me in front of the rest of the team. Like highly unusual behavior from that person. Yeah, that was really dickish, but like, huh, how could I leave with curiosity in this moment, even though I didn't love that, you know?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, so keep going. Take us down this road.
Well, okay, so that just spurred a couple thoughts. So I'm going to tag these and then come back into it. But so right there, that example of like someone on your team says something, it's kind of dickish, right? Or like, oh, it's like inappropriate. Yeah. So it's still maybe appropriate to call out that behavior or like pull them aside later and say, hey, not cool. Like next time that comes up, I want you to do something different. Or like, here's what I need from you, right? I can express my needs. I can speak to it. Because sometimes I think that can also come up. Like, say, well, if I'm just validating, then does nothing get done or does nothing change? And I always say, like, validation is the inroad to change. Right? If someone feels understood or someone's like, oh, well, they get me. Like, hey, I know you have a lot on your plate, and I know you said you were really tired when you came in this morning, and then you got stumbled on something, and then you had that response that you did, but that response is not okay. But if I lead with that understanding, that person is more likely to be receptive of it. And that's just not something that I think to be true. There's some like we could nerd out on some like little neuroscience stuff, but we know that validation helps us soothe our emotional response. And when someone else, let's say we're assuming that person's activated on some level themselves or has some emotions flowing around, if we can bring down the intensity of that emotions, then that opens them up to be more flexible cognitively. So think about like when you get really activated, it shuts down your thinking abilities. Like that's when we get tunnel vision, or that's when we can't see the other side of the story or the other side of the coin. A lot of times I tell people, I'm like, this is a nice little check-in with yourself. What's the other perspective? Like, if you could flip the script, how could someone else tell the story? And if you can't figure that out, you can't continue the conversation because that's a cue that your emotions are too high, or just cognitively you're just shut down enough and it's not going to be productive.
I love
don't
that.
pass go. Do not continue forward.
do not collect $200. You should not continue going down this path.
And I remember when I started doing that for myself, like, I don't know, years ago. I've been doing this practice for a long time, but it would really piss me off when I couldn't come up with the other side. I'm like, oh, but I told myself, or this person told me that I shouldn't continue on, but like, I really want to, right? Like, oh. So even that we can like validate for ourselves. So like, oh, it totally makes sense that I want to continue on. There's something about here that's like got really active and is probably important. It's probably tied to like something that's like a values for myself. So it's not that I'm not going to speak to it, but I'm going to wait until I can be more effective and then I'm going to speak to it. If we want to break out of the conflict cycle. If not, continue on.
Continue on. If it just feels good to fight,
if you just want to continue, just keep going. But if you want to do something different, here's something to consider.
I love this. Okay. And what I want to highlight, what I often experience with my leaders is that when we talk about this stuff, right? It sounds like we're suggesting a process that is unbelievably slow and plodding, and it's the opposite of like urgency or action. What I would offer to you guys is that the reason we're taking this piece by piece in here is to make sure that you have the understanding, because it all starts with awareness, and then you can take it from there, right? And so in practice, in real time, maybe the first couple times you do something, it may feel slow, it may feel clunky, but once you've done it a few times, you're starting to build a muscle just like you would in the gym. And it becomes like a second nature thing that you can do that doesn't take a long time.
Totally.
But just getting the understanding first is where you begin. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
Please continue. This is great.
Okay, so how do we validate? What does that look like? So right off the bat, validation doesn't require that you agree or that you're taking the same stance. So hopefully I said that a minute ago, and if not, we're coming back to it. So I don't have to agree with how someone's feeling or thinking or how they're showing up in the world in this moment. But again, the question is, what do I know about this person that's giving me any information about why they may be showing up the way they are? And what part of that is valid? What part of their, I like to say, like the human experience may be happening in this moment that makes sense on some level. So it's those internal questions that we can ask ourselves that then can lead to saying something or doing something. Validation is not always verbal, but if we start with the verbal responses, just acknowledging the person's how they're feeling or acknowledging what's happening for the person. It makes sense that you're feeling frustrated because your goal just got blocked. It makes sense that you're feeling disappointed because the team didn't finish this at the deadline on time, or I'm giving you tough feedback right now. It's hard to sit with that, like totally understandable. Another one, like kind of another inroad is like anyone would feel that way. So sometimes if we have like enough information about that person in particular, we can say like, oh, it makes sense that they're feeling this way because of their history or because of something that you know about them that's personal. And there's other times where it's just such a global human experience or response to name. Like, makes sense that you're anxious. Anyone would be about when you're about to walk on the stage and give a presentation.
Yeah.
Or when you're pitching an idea for the first time, or you're giving feedback. And it's really hard to do that, right? To like a team member or whoever it may be.
Mm.
So makes sense that they're feeling a certain way. Anyone would feel that way. Validation sometimes can just come through behaviors. So if someone's really swamped at work and like totally overwhelmed, you're like, oh gosh, it just really makes sense that you're overwhelmed. Yeah, like anyone would be.
Yeah.
That's like, yes, technically validation, but like, oh, help me out. Like, throw me a bone here. So sometimes just that behavior of like, oh, I'm really overwhelmed. Like, what can I take off your plate today? Is there anything that we can help with? Is there any tasks that we can do for you? And I think this is like, there's a double-edged sword here because sometimes we want to lead with that behavior, and other times it's not, we can't always do that.
Mm-hmm.
Or like I know for myself with my trainees, like sometimes I want to jump in and do it for them, and I think that would be really validating, but then it also just takes away that experience for them to learn it and do it themselves.
Yeah.
So like I can name like, oh, I wish I could jump in and do this for you, but I'm gonna let you keep working on it. Is there any other ways I can support you?
Mm.
Or is it just helpful just to talk about it?
Mm-hmm.
And I think being heard leads to understanding, so both things can land as feeling validated.
Mm-hmm.
So if we really don't know, it can also be validating to just ask that question. Like, I really want to understand what happened earlier, but I'm having a hard time. Like, can you help me out?
Mm-hmm.
What happened earlier? Like, I am so curious to know. Like, I've been thinking about it and I feel like I must be missing something. Can you help me like know what was going on for you?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So now I'm offering you an opportunity to tell me. And that's feels validating.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. And I think what was helpful about the example you just used about you have like someone you're training, right? And it's not good for you to take the work off their plate because it's really part of their growth. for them to struggle through it and eventually get it.
Yeah.
This happens all the time in the workplace, right? This is part of the reason why training up a new hire is so exhausting, right? And I think that your
Yes.
ability
For
to
sure.
remind people of the why, right? Like to
Yeah.
remind people of the objective or where you're trying to go, like in the work context. I think
Yeah.
this is a great example of that because the person who's struggling in the moment may just want relief from the struggle. They're like, well, why can't you just do it for me?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so your ability, I think, to like meet them there and to be like, I know, I really wish I could too. Like, we're not there yet, but help me understand where you're stuck, right?
Yeah.
Where are you struggling right now with this? Help me understand, because there may be something to their credit that maybe you didn't tell them and that they've never done before, and that they do need some assistance with you teaching them or modeling for them first, right?
Yeah.
But
Totally.
yeah, the why is really important, especially if in the work context. It's not responsible for you to take it back.
Yeah. And I think on some level too, that's really that functional validation, so acting in a way that's validating, is you're treating that person as competent.
Mm.
Like, I know that you can do this. I know this is a skill set you have to grow, so you're going to get there. And it might be look messy at first, but I believe in you. Like, I hired you for a reason. So like, I know you're a solid person. I know you're going to figure this one out. And how does that land? That's like such a
Mhm.
relationship building presence to have or to be able to offer someone else. Um, so I think I was going to speak to this a few minutes ago, but this is making me think of, again, if we're trying to move out of the conflict cycle, the question sometimes that comes up is, why would I do something different? It's like there's
Hmm.
some level of you that knows that this isn't working, or you don't like that pattern that keeps happening, but why would I step out of like the automatic and step into the uncomfortable to do something different? And I think what's important there is to say, to maybe name or identify like your values or the why are you going to do something different. So like if we go back to like that training example, you have a new hire, and instead of you jumping in and doing it for them, what's the value behind that? Like what's important for you? Like what do you want to disseminate to your team? What do you want like what do you want to model for other people? How do you want to show up as a leader? So that question of like, what do you value? What's your value space? And can you lead from that position helps us to do this thing also.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Hmm. Yeah. And so in this example, a value that could be driving you is, um, well, I guess it would be more for the person who's doing it, but like self-sufficiency, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or
I want all my team members to feel
empowered.
competent,
Yeah,
empowered,
exactly, exactly.
to
And
know that
also,
they can do it. They can struggle and it's okay. We
hmm,
can grow here.
yeah, that's good. And it's a safe, I think safety is a big one too, because the most psychologically safe workplaces are the ones that you often see the most successful companies come out of, because
Yes,
it's safe to
totally.
fail, it's safe to struggle. Like the team understands that we can do hard things and
Yeah.
we can be in the struggle together and we're going to make it through, even if it sucks.
And so, I mean, this could be an offshoot, and we could probably spend a lot of time here of there's a lot to like unpack there or to think about what could show up to make that really difficult. So
Hmm.
I want to be the leader. I want to be that person that can provide this, but maybe I never got modeled that, or maybe I never had a chance to do that. So I don't even know what that looks like. Right? So I was like, oh, well, what does that look like? And
Yeah.
then how do I get myself to do that? Which again is probably going to create discomfort, which gives you something to validate for yourself. So when we talk about validation, I also think it's important to remember it's a two-way street. So if I'm really focusing on trying to validate you, I also am going to have my own response to that I can validate for myself too. And I
Hmm.
think it's a great validating yourself is a great self practice
Hmm.
um, that then we can offer to other people. Like it's a great like
Hmm.
practice ground. Like what's it like to validate myself right now? And same thing, a lot of people like aren't modeled that or don't have a template for it.
Yeah.
So what is it about that I'm wanting or thinking or dreaming right now that makes sense? And can I tell myself it makes sense to want those things or to dream those things or to need them?
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not my environment can give it to me or whether or not that dream is going to happen, does it still make sense to have it?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, right? Like, of
Mm-hmm.
course.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, because I think if you've never had that skill modeled for you and you're learning how to do it for the first time, it's you being able to do this for someone else and then also for yourself is really just about helping to bring the temperature down a notch. Like just like it's so soothing to your own nervous system to be like, oh man, that is, yeah, totally see how I would want that in this moment, even if it's like impossible. Like that's beautiful. Okay. Do
This is,
you
oh yeah, no, go for it.
oh, no, what were you going to say? This is what a
I
deep
was like,
rabbit
well,
hole.
this is making me think about, I want to maybe pull up uh, a worksheet or a
You
little
read my mind.
diagram. Okay, so we're gonna have to come back and edit this as we're talking because I'm not gonna be able to move my little arrow around so you can see where I'm at. So I'm gonna do my best to just verbalize this and then walk you through it. But essentially, what we talked about that transactional model of accurate expression and validation, how one person's influencing another person. The most simplistic way of it is just to think about it as a cycle. Someone does something, I respond to it, and like around and around we go. If we zoomed in on that cycle, we would land here, which is the transactional model in more detail. And what this is showing is a typical pattern system we use in DBT that kind of walks you through how we get to become dysregulated.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
So, and I think I've been saying that a few times now, and I don't think I've ever described it. But when I talk about emotional dysregulation, it's that point of when your emotions get to a certain intensity where it shuts down, like it interferes with you being able to be skillful, like this most simplistic way.
Mm-hmm.
Some people might experience it feeling really out of control. Some people might shut down. So it can look really different, but it's when your emotions are at strong enough intensity where it makes you move in ways that you normally wouldn't. That's another way
Mm-hmm.
of thinking about it.
Yeah, makes sense.
So the inroad here, I was thinking about self-validation. So I'm going to come back to that. So bear with me for a second. But what we're looking at here is if you can look at kind of the middle of the page up at the top where it says event, this is
Mm-hmm.
actually the starting point. So
Okay.
all things begin with a prompting event. So a prompting event or like a trigger, and I prefer to use the term, this is just splitting hairs here, but when we think about a prompting event, oh, awesome arrow, thank you.
You're welcome.
A trigger implies that there's an action occurs, and then what happens next you cannot control. So you shoot a gun, you can't once that bullet's out, I've been to shooting ranges, and there's not much you can do after that
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
So to move away from the term of a trigger, because if I use that, then I'm saying, oh, what happened next I couldn't control. But instead of like, okay, a prompting event occurred, and then the series of events unfolded that led me to respond in the way that I did, that
Mm-hmm.
led to this behavior. Same is true for me, and same is true for other people. So an event happens, and sometimes immediately that creates strong emotional response. So I'm looking outside my window right now. I walk across the street, and someone's on their bike, and they go by really quickly. They almost hit me. I don't have to think. I just respond. My body just reacts to that. So I have this automatic like, heightened emotional arousal. So that happens automatically without thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And then that does happen automatically. And sometimes a prompting event occurs. A biker goes by really quick. And I'm like, gosh, what is that idiot doing? They're gonna get hurt. So I have this judgment or I'm thinking about it. And it's the prompting event paired with my thinking or often judgments here when we're thinking about conflict, judgments that then lead to more heightened emotional arousal.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
we can stay in that first event, judgment, heightened emotional arousal cycle for a very long time. We can think about a prompting that can occur. We can have judgments about it. We're feeling activated, and we can keep talking about that prompting event, and we can keep thinking about how much that person was an idiot, and we can keep activating our emotions.
Cool.
This is why I typically tell people not to vent. It's like venting is not an effective strategy because it just gets you more of what you're feeling.
Yeah. Oh, that's why you tell people not to vent.
Not to vent.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Say that again. The reason you encourage people not to vent is because it will kind of help keep them stuck in that loop.
The more you keep recalling that event, you're activating the same emotion that got activated when it first happened. So it feels counterintuitive because like, oh, I'm just in the vent. I'm gonna get this out of my, just gonna get this out there and I'm gonna feel better. But really, as I'm venting, I'm just getting more and more of that emotion. And we probably have all experienced that, but we also probably all seen that, right? Someone's talking to another, it's just spinning their wheels. What's more effective would be this thing happen. Let's go back to like a team example. Someone comes in, they're really activated about something. I want to tell you about it. Hey, what do you need to, how can I be helpful right now? Or what's your framing question? That's what we use on our team. So this difficult thing's happening. Here's my framing question. Like I need help with this piece of it, or whatever it may be. Okay, so where validation comes in. So we have this heightened emotional arousal. We're going to just name that as we're feeling dysregulated on some level. And then when we're feeling dysregulated, we often inaccurately express ourselves. So again, when our emotional arousal is high, it's difficult to think clearly. It's also difficult to name things articulately. It's really easy to go into judgments here. So let's go back to that example. Like I almost got hit by a biker. I don't know why this is the example today, but here we are. If I like came home where we sat down for this call and I'm like, gosh, you're not going to believe it, Faith, when I was walking to the store, this person was such a jerk. It's kind of hard. It'd be hard to validate that. Because what does that really mean? Like, you look up the definition of jerk, like the picture of the biker that almost hit me is not on there, right? So you don't have really enough, you don't really have enough information to work with. And it'd be kind of weird to just be like, oh my gosh, it totally makes that person is such a jerk. You're right. With just the information that I just led with, right?
Yeah.
So you don't really have enough to lead with, to really validate. But if I came like, hey, you're not gonna believe it. This person was just drove by, they almost hit me. I was worried about them. It was really scary. Like, oh, that is easy, that I can pick up on. Like, oh, that sounds super scary. No one gets sideswiped by a biker going by, right?
Sounds terrifying. Yes.
Yes. So if you follow these arrows down, so you have that heightened emotional arousal, we're dysregulated, we inaccurately express, which then sets up our environment to have difficulty validating us. Or then maybe validating, but it's validating something that's invalid or not the full picture. So what's important here is our own processes. If we can lead, if we have the practice of validating ourselves, it helps to reduce our vulnerability factors. So kind of like if you look at the core, if you're at the top left corner, where it says vulnerability factors. So this could be things like stress is a really big one, sleep, eating, like if you slept really well the night before, if you had a good solid breakfast and then you walked into your first meeting and something happens and you feel activated, you're much more resourced to be able to regulate yourself and then to speak clearly to what's happening versus like your sleep's been off, you're fighting with your partner before you came into the office. I don't know, you've got a flat tire on your way there, and then you come into this meeting, something activating happens, you may be under resourced. And then another kind of level there is if we're constantly invalidating ourselves, or if we have a history of being invalidated. It kind of primes us, if you will, to be more reactive to when it happens in the moment. So like an antidote to that, or a skill here, is the more that we're validating of ourselves, it helps prepare us to validate ourselves in the moment, which helps us to soothe our emotional response. So it helps to keep us regulated. And it leads us back towards being able to accurately express or to validate another person. Does that make sense?
That makes so much
And then
sense.
the same is very true at the very bottom. Like this example is just what we use with, family and partnership work. So the name here is partner, but you can just think of person B. So the same is true for person B.
Your dance
right?
partner.
Yes, they have their own vulnerabilities. They have their own emotional response that sets off. And then they have their own judgments that can show up in the room too. So the same is true for the other person.
Okay. Very cool. And what I love about how you're laying this out is that often in life, I think we can lose sight of what's within our control versus what's outside of our control, right? How somebody else feels or reacts or whatever thing they might do, largely out of your control, right? But within your control is what you're doing. And in this case, if you know that you had a crap night's sleep, or like I was heading to a doctor's appointment yesterday and I had to slam on my brakes like I haven't done in a long time to avoid getting in an accident. I knew walking into that appointment that my blood pressure was going to be higher than normal. Like I still felt kind of shaky after that event, right? So I was aware, was mindful of that, and I was doing what I could to just like shake it off and process it. But that's within your control, right? Aware of those things that might be leading to a heightened sense of reactivity for you, right? And then also knowing like wherever you go, there you are, right? You can't leave your baggage at the door all the time. Some days on your not great days, your past will come with you to work, right? Or into any given situation. And so just being aware of that can be super helpful. And all of that is within your control and it all impacts your ability to engage in a more skillful manner with whatever is coming up.
Exactly.
Cool.
So, and again, this is where values would be really helpful. So just a really simplistic model of this. Again, a lot of times when we think about conflict, we think about anger and how anger shows up. So if I know this about myself, maybe I've been getting really angry lately, or it's just been pretty hot with my team recently. My values, I want to model something different. And I'm going to need tools to be able to do that. And today I'm walking into this meeting room with some vulnerability factors that are present. So like I'm tired. I'm like, okay, what's in my control? Like, let's go get some coffee. Let's make sure I eat something before I walk in there. And then validating yourself through your own actions could look like when you do get activated. Let's say something happens, like you're human, you're gonna have these responses. You're gonna feel that ping. Maybe I need to go take a little quick time in with myself. To use another parenting word. Well, the one that I actually teach is, we call it toilet mindfulness. I didn't create this. This is from another teacher that I had, but basically the idea is like no one's going to interrupt you if you say you have to go to the bathroom. Right? Like who's going to argue with that? but no one has to know what you're doing once you're in the bathroom. So you can go take a break. You can lock yourself into the stall. You can have a cup, you can breathe for a few minutes. You can look at a little funny video or something to just kind of distract yourself. You can go get a sip of water, splash cold water on your face. Like, what is it that you need to do? Just have a couple minutes to yourself and then to go back in there. So I had that ping. I felt I was going to go react. Oh, remember my values to do something different. Okay, how do I toggle between these two things, or what's needed? Or a common one that I've been using recently, like now that we live on Zoom so much, like just take yourself off video for a moment. Tell your people like, hey, I'm here. I'm still listening. I'll be back on video in just a minute, right? No one has to know what you're doing. And that's validating yourself through your own behaviors. So instead of telling yourself like, oh, just keep pushing on, or like, oh, what I'm feeling is so valid, I gotta tell them how they're messing up. I can do something different. So that's also in your control. Like, how are you responding to yourself? And taking care of yourself is a way of validating yourself, which helps keep you more regulated, which helps you be able to access the skill of doing something different.
Yeah. It's interesting as you were explaining that, it was reminding me of how I handled some of my worst days when I was running my team. And for context, we were in New York City, fast-paced environment, and we were in person with our core team. And usually what would happen when I was just walking through a moment when life was throwing an awful lot at me is that I would remember, like, my goal is for this to be the safest workplace anybody has ever worked at, like the safest and most supportive, right? So even though I'm having a crap day, I'm not going to take it out on my team. And so I would do everything I could to walk in the door as grounded as possible. And then I would always tell them, especially if I was going into a meeting, like, guys, it's me. I'm having a day. And I just want you to know that if I feel
Yeah.
off to you, it's not you guys, it's me. If there is something that's off or that I'm not okay with that you're doing, I promise you I will tell you. But just know that I'm aware I am bringing some like extra with me today.
Yeah. And how useful,
Right?
right? Because then your team knows, they're cued in, like, oh, she's got a lot on her plate. Maybe I can be
Mm-hmm.
mindful of that. Maybe we can offer
Mm-hmm.
to help.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I can extend some extra compassionate interpretations of her behavior today
Mm-hmm.
versus taking it directly at me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
So like I love that, naming that, leading with that. It's a great thing to
Yeah.
model.
Yeah. And I also used
Uh,
to make this face a lot when I was thinking. And then I realized a lot of
you
the
do?
times,
Really?
yeah, what?
Yeah.
Like when my team would think that I was angry at them because I would just be sitting there going like, like I had like RBF basically, and I was like, no, guys, just this is my thinking phase. I'm aware I look angry, but like I'm not angry. I'm working on it. I'm just thinking. I'm just thinking, So, but thank you for that validation. But yeah, so for just because I think sometimes values or values orientation is not always something that's a common language for people until they
Mm-hmm.
first are exposed to what even is a core value. Like, what is your OS as a human, basically, right? And how can you give yourself that North Star, that northern constellation of stars
Yeah.
for how you want to show up in any given situation, like in a workplace or in life in general, and make your decisions in support of that goal or that way that you want to be in the world.
Yeah. And that's just making me think. So the one thing, so we talked about a lot about validation. Another thing that we named is that idea of accurate expression where we left off on last time.
Mhm.
And you had named that feeling wheel. So like being able to identify your primary emotions is like super helpful. Knowing your values, how your values help move your behavior. That's awesome. And then other things that we've kind of been naming, but I just want to just say them out loud, that just also this falls into the accurate expression umbrella. So again, taking breaks is actually a part of that because it's going to help you show up to be able to express yourself accurately. Just sometimes just describing what happened or describing your needs. So I think you kind of just modeled that, like you walking in, like, hey, there's just a lot going on. There's a lot of pressure and intensity today. I really need to get to this one thing, like help me get there, or like have some, patience with me. Just describe that's it's accurate expression. You have a need, or you're describing what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Anytime like direct communication, non-judgmental communication, that's more effective.
Mm-hmm.
So we know indirect communication is not effective. And it's often more accurate.
Mm-hmm.
So even I think of that as like again like kind of toggling. Like what happens, like what gets in the way. A lot of times that indirect communication is a big roadblock for people
Mm-hmm.
or a big conflict point. Like, well, you said this, but did you really meant that? Or what's happening here? Or someone's really direct, but someone interprets it so differently. So
Yeah.
just that direct communication or getting better at like clearly articulating yourself,
Mm-hmm.
naming your needs, naming what's happening or what you need from the team or what
Mm-hmm.
you want. Like all that's in the accurate expression umbrella.
Yeah. So like just
So
to,
sometimes we get over focused on like just that emotion, which is important, but it's also, it can look, there's more ways to be expressing yourself accurately.
yeah. And so just to make sure we understand that, because I think it's a really good point about the difference between indirect versus direct. If
No,
I
yeah.
walked in, right, guys, it's a day. It's me. I'm aware that I am just like not my best self today, right? So like I apologize in advance. What would be super helpful to me today is, unless it's urgent, could you please not interrupt me while I'm focusing on something, for
Yeah.
example, right?
Yeah.
Or just like put something on the calendar so I know you want to talk to me instead of just coming and knocking on my door. That could be an ask, right? That's a
Yeah.
direct, it's a directly actionable thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Could you give me an example of what an indirect version of that might look like?
Why did you just ask me a question?
So what we're
I,
talking about is
I'm
passive
going to
aggressive.
continue on.
Indirect communication.
Well,
There
I'm
we
going to
go.
continue with my lecture because that's the goal today.
I'm sensing passive aggression is a source, a type of indirect communication.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, good to know. Good to know. Thank you.
I
Thank
think
you.
like I mean, that's, the one example. I think what I see a lot is mind reading.
Oh, uh-huh.
Um, and this is not just something that happens on teams, and this happens to all humans. When we're close with people, we start behaving and functioning in a way that because I know you so well, that I think that I know what you're thinking, or I think that you should know how I'm thinking and feeling because you know me so well. So it's interesting, like when we're new to forming relationships, we're really usually very open and very curious about the person. And so we ask a lot of questions, or like, hey, you seem a little off today. Like, what's up? 10 years into it or a couple months into it, um, we kind of stop asking those questions because, oh, I've learned that when you look that way, this is usually what it means. So that's like where assumptions fall into place. That's where the mind reading comes in. So I think a lot of times in indirect communication, a starter point is you should know already.
Mm.
Like you should know that I need you to not ask questions. Or, oh my gosh, there's like lots of different versions of that.
Yeah, but I think that's a really, really good call out though, because um, I think that's usually the thing that gets in the way of curiosity. And
Mm-hmm.
curiosity is the path to just all sorts of wonderful things. Um, in the absence of curiosity, you think you're a mind reader. Talk
Yeah.
about invalidating someone's experience. Like you're telling them what they experienced. No, that's not gonna
Mm-hmm.
help anyone, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Hence, like the stuff like I felt, I language owning your experience and then being
Yes.
curious about their experience. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then I love the practice of, especially with people that we're really close with,
Hmm.
if I'm aware that I have that thought, like they should know what I need, or I think I know what they're thinking. If I can catch myself in that, there's nothing inherently wrong with that. We just do that. Our brains just automatically fill in the blanks. Like we are storytellers. So lucky that we're storytellers. There's so many beauties in that. And our story's not always accurate. So if I can catch myself there, then that can be my cue to then ask again, go ask questions. Or like I'm noticing the thoughts that this is what Faith is thinking right now because she's has that look on her face again. She thinks that I'm a shitty person, or she thinks I fucked up here.
Hmm.
Um, Let me check in with her about that.
Yeah, this face.
Yeah, she's doing that again,
She's so
right?
pissed at me right now. What is wrong? And I'm like, no, I'm just thinking.
Because sometimes when I do this with like this is like more like kind of partnership work or like with couples, but sometimes like the pushback there is like, well, I do know what they're thinking, or I have pretty high probability of what I think that they're thinking, they actually are thinking. And I'm like, that is awesome. Like, good for you. That's amazing. And statistically speaking, there's just no way that you are right 100% of the time. And it actually is probably more like a batting average, where like you think that you have a really good probability, or yeah, you have a good probability of knowing that and that you might be accurate, but you're probably missing a lot more than you think that you are.
Mm-hmm.
And then what's the trickle down effect to that, or what's the ripples effect?
Mm-hmm.
So again, it can just be a point of contact with yourself. If you can just catch that and notice it, then I can work with that. I can be with it. So I don't have to judge myself or blame myself or make myself feel worse about just having that thought. Like, oh, is mind reading again? Oh gosh, doing all this wrong. Oh no, I just caught that. That's amazing. Okay, now what can I do with that?
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Feels like a good place to put like a pin in it for today because I know you're running up on time, but just like
Oh yeah.
meditating, right? The whole practice, the whole reason we meditate is not to be able to suspend thought. The whole purpose of practicing meditation is just to catch yourself thinking and bring yourself back to the present moment, right? That is
Over
it.
and over again.
Over and over again. And then you start to build a muscle by being able to repeat that cycle. You know, you're not failing at meditation if you're thinking. That's what your mind is supposed to do. And I learned that. I was like, why didn't someone tell me this 20 years ago? I would have such a different relationship with meditation if I knew this, just like with anything rooted
Yeah.
in behavioral circumstances or change, right?
Yeah.
Just all starts with awareness.
Yes.
Oh, so fun. Thank you again for joining us today. If you like this episode, please share, follow, and like us on your favorite podcast app. Check us out on social at The Skills Podcast or On Point Practice, and check out our website at theonpointpractice.com. Catch you next time.